Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Podcast. This is the podcast where I talk with marketeers, business owners, entrepreneurs, even designers, or the people who are just doing the good job for the good people. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing one of them. Aaron, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and let's start it off with that.
Sure. My name is Vidas. I'm the founder and CEO of the world's fastest growing customer journey mapping platform, Strategybox. So we help companies, we put all their data in one spot, and then we tell them what to do next in order to drive their sales up and their costs down using AI.
Sounds good. Actually, sounds like something that's missing in the game, especially like with big companies. The lifespan of the CMOs and all this pandemic happening. So we'll get deeper into all of that. But let's start with something we just talked about off the camera, about nice weather, about mountains and all those kind of things. So what actually lights you up these days?
What lights me up these days is skiing, because it's ski season and I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. So that's part of the deal. No, it's actually I get to make our customers the hero in their own journey. And I think what I've discovered I like the most is helping people figure out what their gifts are and figure out what they really, really want, and then helping them get that. And that's what I enjoy the most. I enjoy doing the most. It's what I enjoy seeing, the growth that people can have. And I think we have a marketplace, and we have both a market-based society, and the pandemic has brought up for a lot of people, oh, I'm maybe not really enjoying my job, and like, yeah, I make good money, but like, this doesn't really light me up. Or, oh, I went to school for one thing because my parents told me I had to do it. And I'm 5-10 years into my career, and just like, I feel dead inside. And I just can we swear on your podcast, by the way? Are we allowed? Because I tend to swear. So
that's okay. That's okay.
I want to make sure it's just, I think people are feeling what the pandemic has brought up is like, oh, life is short. I've got to do something that really matters. I've got to do something that really makes me feel special and makes me come alive inside. And I end the day like talking to my partner about all the cool things I did that day, and how energized I am, versus celebrating Friday and working for the weekend. It's like, man, life is too short. And I think that's the lesson that I've taken over the past 12 months is like, oh, you really just got to go and do the thing, whatever the thing is. So what I'm really loving is I get to do that with my work. So the customers I get to talk to all day, how I start the conversation is like, yeah, what are you really after? Is it like, oh, I want to go work with this really cool, I want to build this really cool brand, or I want to go work with this influencer, this celebrity, because I think we can. Yeah, let's have that conversation. How can we do that? And guess what? Maybe my software can help you do that. Maybe not. I really don't care. It's just like, no, let's help you. So that's what I've really learned. And I get to do that with my customers, but I also get to do that with my team. And that to me is the coolest thing. Like I get to be the kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the Yoda of a bunch of people, and saying like, no, go be the hero in your own story. So yeah, that's what's lighting me up these days.
Yeah, I like it. I can see it in your face when you're talking about it, that you are excited and you love what you do.
Thank you.
I think what's interesting is like, my wife can see it in my face, and she's not happy because I'm spending more time on work than sometimes with her, but at least I'm happy, right?
Well, but that's interesting, because I think a lot of people, like you look at this, I don't know the stats in Europe, but the stats in North America are like more than half of people actively dislike their jobs. And I just go like, that's the energy that you bring home, and you bring to your friends and to your family and to your kids. It's like, no, dude, even if you don't know what your gifts are, make a commitment to finding what those gifts are, finding things that it doesn't need to be work. It could be, listen, I have this job because I'm super passionate about ballroom dance. I don't care. Like, and the job is just pays my rent because it just allows me to dance more. Whatever X is, that's what you want, and you want to do more of it. And I think that energy then spills over into your relationship, but your marriage, and just being like, hey, I'm like, hey, let's go do some fun stuff. And it's just like, they're looking at you being like, oh, for God's sake, you're always so happy. Jesus, can you like get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be like the family and things that makes us happy that spark the business, not the other way around. That some of the
Yeah.
people say like, oh, if I'm gonna make it, like my private life is gonna be okay, and those kind of things. But let's move things a little bit to the strategy box and
Sure.
what do you do. So what actually made you start the company? Is that thing to make the customers like the superhero of their story, or it's something else? Actually, is there actually a problem that you have seen and then like, okay, this is something that we can work with and actually solve it to help people?
Yeah, well, I started Strategybox because I wasn't the hero in my own life. So I started consulting. I worked for the Olympics. I started a consulting company in my 20s. It was very successful in the sense of, I earned good money. I flew around the world. I got to meet with CEOs and boards all day. We did market entry strategy and what would now be called marketing attribution and market research. And it was pretty cool to be, I'm not going to lie, it was pretty cool to be 27, 28 years old, helming a company that you started and earning, $250,000 a year and being flown around first class. And it's like, yeah, your ego, it's like, it's pretty good on the old ego front. But by the time I was 30, I woke up and I was like, oh, I've seen all this before. I'm essentially trading my time for money. And if I want this to grow or I want to affect a lot of people, I saw myself at 40 doing essentially the exact same thing. And I was deeply unhappy. I wasn't in a productive relationship. My business had started to falter. I had some deals I basically wasn't paid for a lot of work that I had done. So I suddenly found myself like, how am I going to pay rent? Which is a really weird, really weird place to be. And then I also looked at my customers and I went, we would do these big consulting, 6-figure consulting projects. I would leave them with presentations and everybody be kind of excited. And then it just wouldn't go anywhere because what I realized there was nothing to then figure out how to gauge your performance. In my case, it was marketing performance of like the changes you wanted to make. And really what I wanted to leave my customers with was, hey, here's a map of how you're doing, and you're doing really well here and you're not doing so well here. And this is what you can do next in order to drive that up. And then I started looking around and I thought, well, okay, maybe, I can't be the only one with this problem. Some software company must have solved this somewhere. And really all I wanted to do was have a dashboard that says, here's your marketing and sales performance. And I spent over a year looking for it and I couldn't find anything. So finally I just said, okay, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing consulting wise. This sucks. I see this opportunity over here. I've got to make the leap. And then it was 3 to 4 years of figuring out, oh, this is what this is. This is the business behind it. And this is what the market needs and what the software solution is to it. So at the end of the day, Strategybox makes it very easy to put customer-centric data in one spot. And I think the big thing that I talk a lot about today with our customers is the expectation is I got to have a data lake. I've got to have some analyst team, put a bunch of stuff together and I'm going to build a database and then I'm going to stick maybe Google Data Studio on top or some BI tool. And it's going to take a year, usually 8 months to 12 is our experience. And I'm going to get something that doesn't really fit my needs or doesn't really give me a ton of insight. And I look at that and I go, no, it should be that you literally make a few clicks You receive data in a dashboard against your goals, so you can tell what your marketing and sales performance is against your goals. If you're in customer success, you can tell the more customer success oriented metrics, you know, call times, customer service requests, that kind of thing. In a dashboard, again, integration with a few clicks, and then you're off to the races. And guess what? You're seeing how you're doing against your goals. You are using our software, at least, then starting to get recommendations on, once you've got that, some recommendations on what to do next in order to improve your performance. Because the cool thing is we have access to data that allows us to do some analysis that you could never do on your own. So one of those in particular is creative enhancement. So advertising, when you think about creative as like, hey, here's the actual image that somebody would see on Instagram, for instance, you have a very tough time kind of, you have to test a lot to know, oh, well, this image and this color works better than this image and this color. We actually have an algorithm that draws from 250 billion marketing interactions to say, well, actually, you're using predominantly red. Red ads don't perform well for you. But those ads that use predominantly blue perform really well for you. And what we found is that drive click-through rates up, 20 odd percent listening to those kind of recommendations. So that's not insignificant. The other thing that we do that I really like is things like influencer attribution. So we're actually able to tell, you hire that influencer for $150,000 for a month of some posts and some stories. We can actually tell you the sales that were driven in from doing that campaign. So what I like, the story I like to tell is that we're starting to give you a picture of what was previously unknowable. And I really like that because it's like, yeah, it's again, insights that help somebody become the hero in their own story. It's like, oh, I could be a rock star at my job. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, like, well, basically it gives me an answer what needs to happen for like the CMOs to kind of like have the munition to do their job. Because sometimes one of the problems that I was seeing in the past few years, and one of the reasons that their lifespan was short, is that sometimes they didn't get the munition to actually do the job they are brought in to do.
Yeah.
And now when they have the data and they can easily find what are some things that work, what are some things that don't work, and like what are maybe the next steps that will allow us to get where we want to go, and we know where we're gonna go. That's kind of what they need.
I have a question for you. Would you find that there's CMOs where you just felt not only they didn't have the ammunition, it's that they couldn't tell their CEO or their CFO, like, oh, this is what's working and this is what isn't? Is that, and or they were bringing in this very complex story about eyeballs and brand, and when it was just like, hey, a CFO just wants to know, if we put $1 into this, like, do we get $15 out? Like, is that like that to me seems a story that most CMOs aren't telling. They're going to, oh, I want to tell this story about eyeballs, or I don't know, like just some weird vanity metric or something very fuzzy, when it's like, no, it has to be a dollars and cents conversation. Is that where you see the resistance happening?
Yeah, exactly. And some of them don't realize like a part of their job as marketeers is to actually explain how marketing works to the CEO, and that also covers the way, like, how do you explain the problem, how do you explain the finances and all those other stuff. Because like, let's say a lot of today's CEOs in the software companies are developers by education, so they are here to solve the problem, and this is kind of the approach that you need to take to explain to them. So it's all related to who is your target group, and do you know them enough even inside the company.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you bring up a really good point, is that I don't think, well, I know a lot of CEOs just don't take the time to really understand, like, oh, hey, this is who my customer is. This is the business problem I solve for them. This is what's really important to them emotionally. This is where they hang out, like online or in the real world. Like, this is their passions, what they're interested in. And they kind of skip to, well, like, oh, I want to focus on the product. Like, oh, I build product or I do that. And it's like, oh yeah, but that you're not going to form a connection there. That's you being in your own ego. That's you spending time where you just want to be right and you've got a view on the world. And I was like, that might not necessarily be what your customer is wanting.
Yeah, there are so many stories to unfold over there. I think that happened over the years. But tell me now, like now we are like, let's say, still in the quarter one of the 2021, the
Mm-hmm.
year, let's say, after the COVID, but COVID is still there. Pandemic
Mm-hmm.
is still strong. So where are you in the, like, if your life cycle of the company? What's happening at the moment, and what are some things, some of the next steps that you have planned?
Yeah, so on just from a growth perspective, we're adding thousands of users every month, which is cool. So we've got some large customers, financial service companies in the U.S. Radio advertising. We do radio advertising. I can say this is public now. We do the marketing reporting for one of the largest radio advertisers in North America. So they have tens of thousands of clients. So we've grown with that. And same with the bank, like they have tens of thousands of advisors, so we're adding people in. So that's been our main engine of growth. What we're adding to that is an intense focus on retail companies, omni-channel, D2C retail, where what we see is our platform is able to. Those companies really struggle with, I just want to know how I'm doing. Like, I just want to know, hey, are we on target with our goals? Are we okay? Are we behind? Are we ahead? And they spend a ton of time and a ton of resources on manually pulling that in. So getting all that Instagram data, getting that data from Shopify, getting that data from Amazon, and just like, okay, I just got to have a report that I can give to my team and I can give to my C-suite. Just being able to do that, we solve, but that's the kind of chief problem I'm focusing on, telling that story. So instead of like throwing our hand up and being, listen, Strategybox can really help you with this thing. Then we can move to the fancier stuff of, hey, you're spending $500,000 a month on influencers. We can actually tell you how many millions of sales that translates into, and benchmark it against other people. So we can say, hey, you're actually doing really good, or like, oh, that investment's not really working for you. That telling that story is our main focus, and just giving people, saying to marketers like, hey, no, you have this ability, you have this option. So that's my main focus right now. I think moving into 2021 and kind of, we're starting to live in this world of COVID, or seeing the end of the light of COVID, I think, across the globe. That's going to fundamentally change people's behaviors. So just, they're going to be able to travel again. You're going to want to go buy new clothes. Like, you're not going to be wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt every day. Like, you're going to be able to get out. So that's going to change consumer behavior, I think, in the, kind of next, let's call it 12 to 18 months. And so a lot of companies want to, well, what do I do now? Like, that's going to change the way I advertise. It's going to change the way I sell, how I talk to my customer. I also still want to be sensitive to, like, this has affected a lot of people permanently. So what I'm focused on is making people aware that they have this ability to kind of know where they're at and it's actually quite easy to do. And then secondly, like, okay, how do we helping them plan for, okay, what do we do next? So where do we spend our money? What's working and what's not? What customers are going to stay with us? Who is going to leave? And when and how are we going to grow? So our tools are helping that. And my focus within the company is really just like, how do we build an incredibly well-functioning team? We're all remote currently. We're going to move once the vaccinations in Canada and North America are a little more, or a little penetrated more. We're going to move to a hybrid kind of office, work from home scenario. I'm really excited to really get we already are this incredible group of people. I want to make sure that culture stays as we move into that new structure. but also that we're continuing to hire people that fit that mold. I was saying this before The Last Dance came out, the Netflix documentary about the Chicago Bulls, but like our team truly is the mid-90s Chicago Bulls. They are NASA in the late 60s. Like, they're incredibly high functioning people that are really, really dedicated to their craft. And all I do as a leader is I give them the bounds of play, I give them the rules, and I just go take swings, go have fun, enjoy yourself, really do something that scares you, do something that is audacious, because we're creating something that's really cool here, and helping a lot of people in the process. So we need to keep that high level of execution up.
Yeah, I love that, and you're moving in the right direction, because I wanted to know some of the things related to the values that you are creating over there in the company. Like, I mean, as a founder myself, and as somebody who has built culture in the previous companies as well, I mean, it starts with the values that the founder has, right? And
Very
then
much.
you build up to that. And I mean, if you are really hiring people based on those values, people that kind of keep building the culture to the values, then I mean, you are moving in the right direction. So what are some of the values that you had from the start, and maybe what are some of the values that you are developing now as the team is growing?
Ooh, good question. Values I had at the start that kind of won't change. I think there's three big things. I encapsulate the concept as we're happy warriors. So like this idea that your life is this wonderful unfolding. Life is this setbacks, it's love, it's triumph, it's failure, it's this beautiful thing. And to really get the most out of life, what you have to do is be prepared. You have to prepare and grow. And to do that, you have to have a warrior's mentality. You have to be disciplined, but it's disciplined about things like love. To have this discipline of self-love, of saying, no, I accept my imperfections. I accept who I am. I accept this stuff that I made mistakes in the past, and I can't let that burden me. I am here and in the moment, and the moment is unfolding, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I have to be present for that. So the kind of first principle I come to is always, you are in charge of how you think and how you feel and your actions. And nobody around you other than you is responsible for that. So that's something that I always say to people is like, oh, you're making me uncomfortable, or, oh, this event triggers me in some way. That is a signal to you to go work on yourself. So that's having a meditation practice, that's journaling, that's going to therapy, that's, your 14-year-old, you didn't get invited to the party when you were in grade 8, and therefore you feel like an outsider and nobody loves you. Guess what? Let go of your shit, move on with your life, have some fun. That responsibility is the first thing that I don't think will ever change as our organization grows, is to say, you're responsible for how you think, act, and feel. And nobody else is. So what are the practices you put in place in order to feel your highest and best for the most amount of the day? So for me, that's exercise, that's meditation, that's journaling, that's sleeping well. And that's if something in the back of my head is saying, like, there's a background conversation, I'm bringing it to the foreground. Hey, I didn't like when you said that. It didn't make me feel that way. So that's kind of one thing. Second thing is, I call it the rocking chair test. So I always say, hey, you're 92 years old, you're looking back at your life and you're going, yeah, I really did this thing well. Like, I really, really took a crack at this and I really made some big swings. It didn't always work out the way I thought it would. Actually, it worked out better. And I think so many people they spend so much time thinking about what others will think of them, thinking in a place of fear and being in a place of like, well, if I do this, I don't know if it's going to work, or like, or doing things because they think it will win the approval of others and they will feel better about themselves. So they go pursue a job or a career they don't really like. they don't spend their time doing things that they want. Like the quote I always say is, we're buying shit that we don't even want to impress people we don't even like. Like, you're doing that stuff. It's like, no, live the life that is your own. And that's the rocking chair test. So when people come to work at Strategybox, it's always, what do you really want to do? Because we'll help you do that. It might not be working in software. It might be like, I want to go be a circus performer. Cool. If you're an awesome customer success person, let's get you being awesome at customer success, and then let's get you to trapeze school. Let's figure out the plan on how to get you there. I'm not gonna, being in tech is not the be all and end all. So yeah, that rocking chair test is the second thing. And then the third thing is never doing anything that you would be never saying or acting in any way where if it was printed on the front page of the paper, well, I used to say front page of paper. Now I just say like a website, like a newspaper's website, that you would be uncomfortable with your friends and family reading that. And that's the integrity test. So it's like, I'm not doing things where I'm like, I wouldn't want other people seeing that, which I think happens a lot in business. Like, oh, it's just business. And it's just like, or, you screw somebody over because you think it'll get you ahead, or you don't do what you said you were going to do because for what, name X excuse. And you go, would you want that as a headline and as an article in a paper? Probably not. And the nice thing I think is I've worked in environments and I've worked for people where you frankly just couldn't trust them. They said one thing and then did another. And what I really love about Strategybox is we've gathered a group of people where the integrity of the decisions and the talk and the action being made, I never have to question. And I think everybody feels that and they relax, and that allows them paradoxically to do better work, because it's like, oh, I'm not worried about, Steve the sales guy over. I'm making up employee names because I don't want to name my actual team member names. Steve's going to say something in the meeting and throws me under the bus, and therefore I'm going to hold back on an idea. That shit just doesn't fly at Strategybox. We just shut it down before, or those people are out before they're kind of allowed to be around and infect the culture.
Yeah, that's some great points. Do you actually have a book or something that you are giving to the people coming to the company? Like in my case, it's one of the books that I'm carrying always with me, Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
Oh, like, of course.
The smaller version. So this is the one that I always has with me.
Yeah, so it's funny. I just rearranged my desk. Normally I have my bookshelf like right here and I could pull like books off. I can't right now, but so actually my CTO, Justin, and I we were talking about meditations maybe about a month ago. It's one of his favorite books. The two books that I give new employees are Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It by Naval Ravikant, I think is his name, which is an amazing book about a guy who was in tech. He was a CEO, incredibly burnt out, not getting anything he wants out of life. And he transformed his life, became wealthy, name the marker, by literally just, stopping himself and being like, I'm not my thoughts. I've got to separate that, and I'm going to choose better feeling thoughts. And I need to learn how to like I was saying earlier about that self-discipline of love. I'm going to choose to love myself. And the first 2/3 of the book are amazing. The last third, he talks about this relationship that's disintegrating. I tell all my new employees, I'm like, listen, you when you get to this chapter, don't worry about this part. It swerves hard left. But the first 2/3 are great. The second book is, I either, depending on the person, I give The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer or The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Michael Singer was a hippie taught himself computer programming in the late 70s, early 80s. And he started what became one of the largest medical software companies in the US. And literally the entire time lived in the backwoods of North Florida. And he's like a hippie, like he's just like straight up. And what I love is he was a man who taught himself a lot, but he saw his life as this every experience he was having was teaching him how to grow and was teaching him how to get out of his own way. So, oh, I have these negative, something happens to me. Instead of viewing life as something is happening to me, well, life is happening for me. Oh, okay. The reason I didn't get this job or this thing didn't work out or this relationship went poorly was because it was leading me over here because I needed to learn I couldn't act that way before. And the reason I give The Untethered Soul usually is it talks about very practical ways to stop negative patterns of thought. So I think a lot of us have this train of thought in our head that's constantly going and saying, oh, oh, Aaron, you're not doing this well, or like, oh, like you really fucked that up, or like, and it's just like, I don't want that voice anymore. So it was a book that helped teach me how to get out of that.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. I have some books to read now.
Perfect.
Definitely. Okay, so talking about those things, what are some? Let's come up to two things. So the toughest moment that you have in your career and the biggest challenge that you had.
Ooh. Actually, can I tell you a story I've never told anybody?
Yeah, for sure. That's why we're here.
So one of our investors is Fuel Ventures. They led our seed round. So this would have been last fall. So we were we were essentially finishing the round up. We were in a space of, growing quickly, had a team. The team was essentially all contractors. We were all going to move to as employees when the round closed. I was just straight up out of cash, like just straight up, we didn't have enough money. And the round was meant to obviously like bring everybody whole, get us going, and we could build the platform that we wanted to build. And COVID happened. Also, there's an incredible amount of regulation in the UK when you do venture investment. So I spent a month literally going back and forth with the tax authority in the UK, literally printing. I had a form I had to print. And in the UK, you use different size paper than you do in North America. I had to order this paper size. It had to be like overnighted. But it literally took me a month of going back and forth with the tax authority. And I'm not exaggerating. It was, this margin on this form is 3 millimeters off. You need to reprint it, but you have to mail it to us because we don't accept fax and we don't accept email. So it would be, I would have a phone call. They would say, you need to reprint all these forms. I would be up until 2:00 in the morning, getting all these effing margins right, only to then send this paperwork in, have a phone call 2 weeks later with somebody being like, oh, well, we discovered this other piece of this form is filled out incorrectly. You'll need to resubmit the whole thing. This went on for 3 months. And I literally, it was pretty dark days. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I have no money. I'm a very patient investor, thank God. We were all aghast by like the steps we had to take to get this closed. But yeah, I had an advisor being like, so you have multiple millions of dollars hinging on you being able to print a document correctly. And I was like, yes. And he's like, okay. So we got it done. But yeah, I had a lot of those 3 months then the pandemic hit. And then it was like, we don't know like what's going to happen here. Is the tax authority just going to shut down? And yeah, I had multiple conversations with my team to basically just be like, this might not go. Like we're done the business. And that was, as a leader, one of my toughest moments, because it was just like, I have to be forthright. I can't, these are good people that have risked their careers and their time with me. And this might not work out. So yeah.
Was going after the investment like a tough decision, or it was just an obvious step, like I have these people here who depended on me and I need to do something to keep them here. They all have families, they all trust me, and I have a business that I need to keep developing, so we need to get into that conversation.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, the math that I did in my head was, at the end of the day, I can go consult for a little while. I know, like, you know, I owed my employees money, I owed them back pay. And I thought, well, at the end of the day, I could go get a few, you know, and not to toot my own horn, but it's like, hey, I used to close $500,000, $250,000 consulting projects all day. So it was like, okay, I know I don't want to go back, but I know absolute worst comes to worst, I can make these people whole. So the money that I do owe them right now, I can get through another means. But however, what that would mean was I was taking a step back and I wasn't developing the software that I believed in. And that was a tough call to just go forward. So I knew I could go back. I knew that would I knew that would work, but I also knew it would be going back. So I had to make this conscious decision to step forward into the unknown and say, this will work. And it did. and it's working really well now. So we're like, okay, it was the right decision. But that was one of my tougher moments as a leader, because it was, these people are depending, as you said, depending on me. They have kids, they have mortgages, they have rent. And I'm going to give them everything. I knew at least I would make them whole. It might leave me in me in financial disarray, but I was like, okay, I can do well by them. We're cool. And that gave me the courage to still move forward with the investment and still move forward with growing the software company and focusing on doing that and doing it well versus going and doing something else.
Yeah, it's great to hear those things. I mean, not many founders are talking openly about those things, those tough moments that they're going through.
Well, I think founders talk too much about failure. And I go, like, there's a startup culture I've never quite understood where it's like, hey, let's focus on how we really fucked up. And I'm like, it's kind of the wrong energy. That's not to say you don't learn from your mistakes and you don't look at something and go, oh yeah, we did screw up there and this is how, and you do a postmortem on it. But what we have to celebrate or should focus on is, this is how it feels like, and this is how I'm moving through. To move through the unknown is really scary, and that's okay. That's actually kind of fun and exhilarating. And I talked to Alex, our head of sales, a lot about this concept of the wobbly bike. Like, I love this idea of, like, you think about when you first learned how to think back to the very moment when you first learned how to ride a bike on two wheels. And it was exhilarating. It was terrifying. It was really cool. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. It was this incredible sense of freedom. Also, this incredible sense of, I'm going to fall over at some point. And I think that's a lot of what being a CEO and a leader is just like, this is all those things. And it is all those things. And it's to deny any of those emotions is to deny the fullness of the experience. So just be with it, like, have fun with it and play with it. And yeah, eventually the moments of like, are going to calm down a little bit. And it's going to just like, it's going to do this a little more. And that's okay, because you can't live like this. But honor those feelings. Don't shy away from them.
Yeah, but I totally agree. And the comparison with riding a bike is like the perfect. Bicycle is something I'm riding every day. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about marketers, and especially, like, I think those that work in SaaS startups, because I'm seeing that most, I'd say, SaaS startups don't focus too much on.
That's tough to say and imagine.
Yeah, sometimes it is. They don't focus too much on, like, personal development and like the well-being of the team members. So yes. Why is, like, creating career-defining experience and creating an environment where A players can do their best work a core focus actually for you? Because from what I'm seeing, this is exactly the environment that you are creating.
I think it's a core focus because, well, do you want to hear the really practical? Do you want to hear the real practical reason? The really practical reason is I can't afford to pay what Microsoft, Google, and Amazon pay. So like that, I'm a startup. Like it's just like, you know, our marketing budget is a junior developer salary at Microsoft. So like that we can't compete. So I go, that's also not necessarily the person I want to attract. So I go, well, how do we stand out? How do we create a great product? And how do we create a fulfilling environment? Because I want to work in that environment too. It isn't, you know, this is where I spend my most waking hours. So I might as well make it fun and interesting and work with people I enjoy being with. In my mind, like that, when you're this is just a values thing. When you're focusing in on improving your people, that comes back to you tenfold. So, you know, I remember, for instance, I remember we have a budget. We give $1,000 to every employee for personal development. And I remember one of my investors kind of looking at that and going like, why the hell are you doing that? And I was just like, oh, as opposed to they stay and like, you know, I'll give an example. One of our developers is taking he's taking like a time management and communications course. We were chatting last week, and it was like he was super excited to learn some really simple tools about how to prioritize and how to clearly communicate and set boundaries. And I go, that allows him to do more work that he enjoys versus feeling like he's obligated to do some work because somebody's come to him and gone, oh, hey, I've got this, you know, urgent thing. And he's like able to set a boundary and go, no, actually, when I promised other people I'd be working on this, I can't do that right now, but I can help you maybe tomorrow between this time and this time. And then that person be able to go, oh, okay, and then moving on. So that's a very practical, I just look at those investments as I go, man, that's a pretty good ROI. When you give people those kinds of tools that help them grow, it's going to come back to you tenfold. And it's funny, like we haven't had to do a lot of recruitment because all of our employees are like, oh, I got a buddy. And that person turns out to be a really good fit for us culturally and experience level wise. And just like, oh yeah, come on in. Like, of course. So yeah, I look at it as you just have to do it because how else are you going to stand out? How else and it's the right thing to do because it gives more value to everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. A short question related to that. Because I've seen some companies like post billboards around the places where they interview potential employees.
Oh, really?
So yeah, like who was the last one I heard about were Udi and the Gong.
Okay, yeah.
So when somebody comes to the interview for the job, like they see the billboards, so when they come to the interview, they're already excited, like about working there. So my question to you is, what would be on that billboard if that is you?
Love yourself completely. That's it. Buy Strategybox. Strategybox logo at the bottom.
That's great. That's great. Okay. For the end of the conversation, let's chat a little bit about the future and about some things like, let's call it like strategic narrative, for example.
Sure.
So I want to ask you, do you have somebody who's like a bad guy for you for the strategy box? Like,
who's our villain?
I mean, it can be one, it can be more of them, but like, I don't know, Social Media Examiner, let's say, had Facebook when they shut down the news feed because Facebook was their primary source of the traffic.
Yeah.
So they say Facebook is the bad guy. So when it comes to you, like, who do you see as like the bad guy?
I think, well, I'll modify it a little bit because I'm going to stall for time. Our customer's villain is if they're in e-commerce, it's their counterpart in brand. If it's our customer's villain might be the CFO because they're in marketing and sales and they want more budget. In the case of brand and e-commerce, traditionally in retail don't get along very well because their incentives are different. If I'm the CEO of a retail company, my villain is the noisy world of trying to buy something today. Like it's, this incredibly fragmented media landscape. You can't just buy a magazine ad anymore, a billboard, put a billboard up, and you're getting the word out about your company. It's, oh Jesus, I got to be on TikTok, I got to be on Instagram, I have to essentially be a media company, and I've got to tell a good story and spend money in the right places and control my data privacy. It's like that complexity and fragmentation is the villain. The villain for Strategybox would be complacency. It would be the norm. Doing the, I say, listen, listen, sales prospect or company we're talking to, there's trends that you cannot escape. People now buy on their phones. People watch YouTube reviews of products, like to buy pretty much anything. They don't watch TV ads. They are on their phone texting. Like, you have to break through to that. So guess what? You have to really understand what's working and what's not working and what you're doing and what is influencing people to buy. And if you don't understand that, like, you want to just kind of ignore that, you're going to do that at your own peril. So I often say that's our villain. It's just like getting people to kind of wake up and be like, this doesn't need to be overwhelming. You can do it very simply and easily. You can start with us. It's easy to get started, but you're going to have to make this change. You can't otherwise. So yeah, those are our customers' villains, and that's our villain.
Yeah, sounds great. I like how you thought about it deeply. So one more question, and we can end with this: is how do you see the proliferation of the smart technology going to play into the evolution of the C-suite into big companies? Is like are the tools like Strategybox here to just like replace the number of tools that people are using and make them all easy, like make the data easy to interpret? Or do you see something else happening? Because like right now, I think the marketeers and all the others are competing, like what are the new shiny things, new shiny tools that we are using, but do they actually have some effects, and are they putting us in a position to actually do the better job? That's questionable.
Yeah. I think the new shiny object will always exist. That's always just going to be there. Somebody's always going to be making something and being like, hey, look at this. And, that's the humans being humans. I'm not going to change that. I think what I see is that we are reaching this critical moment where it is too overwhelming to individually go to each of those shiny objects or tools and go, oh, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of data there, or a data point or a metric, and then I'm going to go to the next tool, and then I'm going to, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to see that. To see things that, like, our customers are just like, I'm on overwhelm, and I just want to see how I'm doing in totality. And I go to string all that together. It's actually technically quite tough, but we've managed to do it. But the reason being is, like, you need to see the whole story, because that's how your customer is also behaving as well. They're not just going to one place, they're going to multiple places. So you need to see that. And how I feel we are moving is just into more calm, into more paring things down and making things not necessarily simplistic, but simpler. So, hey, these are the activities that introduce your customers to your brand. These are the activities that influence them. And these are the things that on your website that cause them to close, like to actually complete the transaction. Here's a email marketing, particular email marketing campaign that works well, an ad, whatever the specific thing is. But having that simplistic look of the customer's journey is, I believe it to be the future, because it has to be, because there's too much data for one person to sit and go like, to take it all in and actually make a decision. So that's where I see us going. The cool thing about what we're doing is it's all modular. So it's TikTok in 2021. It was Meerkat 4 years ago or 3 years ago. It was, there'll be some other social network or some other thing that becomes popular with consumers that marketers will want, the new shiny object, in 4 years. That's okay. Just know that that'll slot in. But what's not going to change is introduction, influence, close. So when you can understand those three parts of the journey, suddenly everything else becomes easier.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for this. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that we talked about multiple topics, not only about, let's say, the software, because I think one of the biggest things in tech that needs to happen is that companies needs to start putting people first. So actually people who are building the technology, and that's still yet to happen. It still didn't happen. And for it to happen, like, we need more people like yourself and some other people who are talking about those important things, not only like related to the job, but how to know yourself better, how to learn more about life, more about what you do, and tell the listeners where they can find you, and maybe get more into conversations like this one.
Yeah. So available, easiest place is our website, strategybox.com. I'm posting pretty much every second, third day on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time for Strategybox. And more so, if you're both on Instagram, we'll be doing more on Instagram as well, and talking a little bit more about kind of software leadership and personal improvement on Instagram versus LinkedIn. But yeah, those are the two best places to get a hold of us. I think if you're a business that wants to understand what are the things that bring people, my customers in, and what do I do next, we can help you out. Like we can show immediate results and save you a lot of time. What I'm most interested in, though, is having a community of people around us that are up to the same thing as you said. Like, hey, I want to be a little bit better as a person. I want to love a little more. I want to be a little bit more of myself, because that, I think, is ultimately what the world wants more of. And whether that's through software or that's some other means, awesome. Like, you got to do you.
Thank you. I'm glad that we have the conversation, and I'm looking forward to having another one in a few months when things change a little bit and you get to the next level.
We're gonna talk iOS 14. We're gonna talk we're gonna talk post-pandemic marketing plans. It's gonna be great.
Perfect. Okay, so waiting for you here in ex-Yugoslavia, and chat more another day.
Thanks, Nemanja.